Welcome to the Question Everything Podcast. I'm your host, David Dye. Most people think mental health struggles, are something you diagnose and treat. But what if that model is incomplete? What if stress, anxiety, and even deeper struggles are rooted in something that isn't being addressed at all? Today's guest, Richard Tierney, takes a very different approach to trauma recovery, one that challenges conventional mental health thinking and introduces a spiritual dimension to healing that many people overlook. So today, we're going to explore what trauma really is, why some people stay stuck for years, and what it actually takes to break free. So welcome to the podcast, Richard.
David, thank you very much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this for the last week or two, so really glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay, I'm glad you're here. Now, what do most people misunderstand about trauma?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, understand that every single person on this earth has experienced the same trauma. And what I mean by this is that when we were born, I saw a TikTok about two twins in the womb. One says to the other, "What do you think happens when we come out of the womb?" The other guy says, "Oh, it's all over. When the umbilical cord is cut, it's all over. There's nothing after." The other guy says, "Well, what if there's something beyond our wildest imagination?" And of course, it was a plug for heaven and believing in God. But it got me thinking about when we're born. So I do believe that when we're born, we have three primary responses: fight, flight, and freeze. And so that when we come out of the womb, the shock of coming out of the womb and going into the unknown, if you see a child come in the womb, they're kicking and screaming, maybe they're in a state of fight, and the nurse wraps them up in a blanket and puts them into a cot. In that moment, that child learns fight isn't effective. It's their go-to response, but it isn't effective. So they're stuck in a state of fight, flight or freeze as they grow into human life. The next child comes out of the womb kicking and screaming, and it's in a state of flight, and again it's taken from it, so now it's stuck in a state of fight or freeze, and it doesn't know what to do going forward. The third child comes out of the room and it's comatose, and the doctor holds up the ankle, slaps on the bum to get a reaction out of it, and in that moment it's told freeze is not safe. Your primary response to danger is not safe, so they're stuck in a state of fight or flight. We hear this quite often with a lot of people stuck in fight or flight. Then you have the child who comes out of the room happy, joyous, and free, like that one that's going to become a movie star or something, and they're so cheerful they give them straight to the mother and they reconnect that person. I think that child is in a state of faith or acceptance. They're either faith that they know that God's in charge, or acceptance that everything's going to be okay, and they go on to be the strong, healthy ones that become the president of America and the movie stars and whatever, while the rest of us are suffering with our responses. So there is that situation which every person on this planet suffers with one of these. They've been affected in some way. So 3/5 of the world's population has been affected by one of their primary responses taken from them. And we hear so many people talking about they're stuck in fight and flight, stuck between fight and flight. What they're actually saying is they're stuck in freeze and fawn. Now, freeze and fawn are the healthy responses for children. So when you were growing up, if there's any dysfunction in your home, as a child, you can't leave the house because you might get lost, and you can't defend yourself against adults. So you go to a place of fantasy. You disassociate, you shut down mentally and emotionally, you go to your happy place, and you just detach from the space you're in. And then fawn is people pleasing, playing happy families, allowing people to walk all over you, suffering in silence, suffering fools gladly, passive aggressiveness. They're all the fawn. So in our childhood, these are healthy responses. The problem is a lot of children, because I think, at broken homes or dysfunctional upbringings, when they grow into teenage years, they're still stuck in their childhood responses. And they go from not even just teenage, but into adult life, they're still stuck in trusting and depending on their freeze and fawn. And freeze and fawn are brilliant when you're a child, but they're very dysfunctional if you're an adult. So people grow up and whether they're a teenager or they're a young adult or an older adult, you'll find many people are still stuck, dependent on their freeze and fawn, and they don't understand why it no longer works. And the families are pissed off because they want you to take responsibility for life, and we keep going to freeze and fawn. We keep disassociating or silent treatment, or that silent treatment is the worst. Someone's trying to communicate with us, and we shut down and we just stand there and ignore them, and they're going crazy trying to get through to us, and we're just switched off. And we're trying to keep safe, but we don't know how to use flight, fight, faith, and acceptance. We've no idea. And so we have to find some way of teaching ourselves, even though we're no longer children. No matter what age you are, you need to learn that flight simply means getting up and walking away. So if you're on this podcast and myself and Dave chatting here trigger you, just put down your phone, get up and leave the room. Go and watch some TV, do your chores, do your homework, go for a run, go for a cycle, go down to the town and buy an ice cream. And when you feel safer, come back to your phone and maybe listen to this again. And it may take 10 or 20 visits to your phone to listen to the whole podcast so that you'll finally realize maybe Richard's saying something that would help me. Maybe I will try this fight and flight and realize going out for an ice cream actually helped an awful lot. I didn't pop a pill. I didn't go to victim and crying my eyes out. I actually put my phone down and went away for 10 minutes and I was safe. And you realize that flight is a healthy response. You might hide in the closet. You might hide under the bed or in the bed. You might hide at your grand's house. You might hide behind the couch. Mine was hide behind the couch. I remember in my late 20s, I'd be on my day off watching TV and my parents come over to the house to try and help me. And I would see them and they'd see me through the curtain and I'd pull the couch out and I get down my hands and knees, hands over my head, rocking back and forward, humming to myself on the ground. They could see me saying, "We can see you, Richie, come out." Or I'd be humming away to myself, disassociating. And when they left thinking, if I go in, he may hurt himself, they'd leave. I'd get back up again, sit on the couch and chain smoke watching my TV. So understand that we all have trauma. We all have the exact same trauma in coming into this world. Then you have all the trauma of dysfunctional home, or I really think taking God out of our lives as children has really affected us in a very bad way. We don't realize it, but no child should be deprived of knowing there is a creator and they're a child of God. I think it's very important. Me as a parent today, I do think my son now, we read the Bible almost every night if we can. We're not experts in the Bible, but I try to get him to read the Bible. I mean, we discuss what we've read, what do we think that means to each other, just to give him some sense of when he hasn't got friends to fall back on or someone of this earth to fall back on, he always knows God's there. It really is a powerful way of helping children deal with life. Okay, I'm still going to stop for a moment. I feel like I'm preaching rather than having a conversation, David. So I'll let you in there for a moment if you'd like to come in.
Sure, sure, no problem. Now, why do people stay stuck, in these cycles and these negative behavioral patterns, even after they have therapy, in your opinion?
Well, I don't think therapy works. And my argument for this is I'm a 65-year-old man today. I only exist in this stage today. To explain what I mean, yesterday I was very excited about meeting and coming onto your podcast. I've been practicing my speech and I speak slowly because I'm very reactive and I speak very fast. All my family say, "You speak too fast, no one understands you." And I say, "I'm Irish." And they're saying, "No, no, you don't practice speaking slowly. It's not that you're Irish. You don't get to use an excuse for speaking fast and mumbling your words. You have to learn to pronounce all your words, speak slowly, breathe, and practice what you're going to say." And so yesterday I'm practicing like mad that when I come onto the show, I sound in some way balanced and calm and carry some message. So the person I was yesterday and the person I am today are two completely different people. Yesterday, I'm nervous, apprehensive, and excited of coming on your podcast. And today, I feel like I'm nearly. And that tells me quite clearly I'm not the same person I was yesterday. And that was my breakthrough at the age of 52 years of age. I realized that if I'm a 52-year-old man today, I can't be a 12-year-old child who was molested 40 years previous. I carry the memory of what happened to that 12-year-old child. And I carry sympathy pains for what he went through. But he went through it, not me. So me going for therapy for something that didn't happen to me is the craziest thing we can do because we can't get closure on something that happened to somebody else.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. Sometimes I get the feeling that therapy, by you rehashing over and over and over traumatic experience, it tends to, I guess, prolong that, the trauma from that experience. So because one of the things I've learned about uh, psychology and about self improvement, all that type of thing, those types of things, is that uh, we create what we think about. We create what's on our minds. We create from our belief structure. So if we believe that it's something we can't get over quickly, or if it's something that is going to, color the rest of our lives, then we have a tendency to psychologically reproduce, that type of condition in our lives. So I understand what you're saying as far as that.
That's a
Do you?
brilliant observation. Brilliant observation. In the Christian faith, there's a few things we have to understand. Again, I come back to the idea of God, because when we can include God in the solution, everything changes. So the Bible says that God's name is I am. Okay. And the kingdom of God, I used to think that God is up in an armchair like that movie star, that played Thor, the old man who was in Jurassic Park, that he's sitting big beard up in this armchair looking down, waving his finger at you, bad boy, Richie kind of stuff. And then I met this wonderful pastor who spent time teaching me about God, whatever, and I got to understand that God lies within us. He lives in our subconscious mind. And whatever we think about, we manifest into our lives. That he gave us free will and a book of instructions. And whatever we attach to his name, I am, that's what we manifest into our lives. So if I'm going on saying, I am depressed, I am broken, I am lost, no one loves me, I am deformed, I am hopeless, I am without a job, I'm without a partner. If these are the things we're saying, these are our prayers. God doesn't do feelings. He gives us whatever we ask for. And he trusts that we're asking for the right things because he gave us a book of instructions called the Bible. So if we keep saying, I am depressed, I am anxiety, I am bipolar, I am PTSD, I am complex PTSD, I am schizophrenia, if we keep declaring this, he's going to give us that tenfold. So you think of the number of times when I was in the depths of my depression, I would think depression 10, 20 times a day. And that would mean 10 times, 200 times a day, God would give me expressions of depression to experience. I was asking him for more depression every time. I went through my alcoholism and my compulsive gambling, my self-harm. Thinking these thoughts would manifest more of the same all the time. So I really think the idea of teaching people to watch the language we use and to change our language up. So what I share in one of my books is the idea of what we call dream prayer, this kind of manifestation, which is what you do is you say, up until this morning, I believed that I was severely depressed and there was no hope for me in the future. But coming on to David's show and listening to this stranger, Richard, who speaks quite fast from Ireland, I begin to see that I am my own worst enemy. So I choose to declare here and now, I have a great outlook that my life is going to change when I focus on only attaching to I am everything that is happy, joyous, and free. And we repeat that prayer 10, 20, 30 times a day. You do that for 30 days, and by day 10, suddenly everything changes. You feel less depressed and you feel more happy, joyous, and free. And you won't understand how it is. You're saying this against all your better judgment because you feel really depressed and anxious. But you say this out loud in front of the mirror in your bedroom 10, 20, 30 times. Your family may be woke, they may be anti-church, they may be church hurt. So you do this in private. You write out your prayer. Up until this morning, I was X. But now, after being on David's show and listening to this guy, Richard, I declare I am happy, joyous, and free. I am hope-filled. I am full of miracles. I am going to get a girlfriend. I'm going to get a boyfriend. I'm going to get a job. See yourself as being the I am getting a boyfriend. I am having a girlfriend. I am getting a job. And say the same prayer. You can use one prayer. Say it 100 times a day, all through your day, not out loud, but in the car, on the motorbike, on the bicycle, walking the dog, in your lunch break, on the toilet, in the shower, wherever you are. Just repeat this to yourself over and over again like a mantra. And what will happen is God will hear this new prayer and he say, "Oh, Richard's changed his mind. He's declared something different. Okay, well, let's give this to him." If he hears the prayer enough, he'll believe it's a new prayer. Or he's no longer depressed, now he feels happy. And suddenly you'll find someone asks you out on a date, you're kind of going, you go, how did that happen? Or someone offers you a job, or something will happen. You kind of go, how did that happen? And really it's because, like you said, you change what you're thinking about.
Okay, excellent, excellent. I like that. That's actually giving people tools to actually use. They can take and use right now to start to change, their experience of reality. Now, I want to change gears a little bit because I noticed in some of your material that you had mentioned, you had talked about medical misdiagnosis in terms of mental health. Now, what does that actually look like in real life?
I honestly can't tell you except my own personal experience. I can recall, as I say, I'm not a church going Christian. I'm not a member of any denomination by choice. and I'm not a member of any religion. I was raised a Roman Catholic. I became disillusioned with the Roman Catholic faith. And so I stepped away, and I thought because I was giving up the Roman Catholic faith, I couldn't have God in my life. So for some 30 or 40 years of my life, I didn't have God in my life. And then my children were born, and something compelled me to think, well, I maybe don't have God in my life, but I need to introduce my children to God, and then later on they can decide whether they want to have God in their life or not. So I went back to my Catholic church here in where I live in Thailand, and the Jesuit priest, I met him once a week, and I never forget it. He gave me a book, Roman Catholicism for Dummies. He said, read that. That'll explain to you all about the faith. So I read it from top to bottom, and I knew after that I didn't want to be a Roman Catholic. there was so much disagreement. And he said to me, listen, go down to the Protestant church and have a chat with the pastor down there. So we went down to the Protestant church, and I met this really wonderful old minister, retired, and he said, I'll meet you for breakfast every Tuesday morning, and I'll talk to you about God, Jesus, and miracles. How's that? And I said, brilliant. So once a week, every week for 3 years, we'd have breakfast. And he'd say a prayer before we had breakfast. Then we'd have breakfast, and we'd talk about God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and miracles. And then he'd say a prayer afterwards. And it was really beautiful. And and I didn't have to join his church. I didn't have to join his denomination. He would just witness to me for an hour of breakfast. And it was really wonderful. And by the end of year 3, suddenly I realized God was in my life. I believe in the Holy Spirit. So today I declare I am a child of God. I am a sibling of Jesus. And today I am Richard the Christ. Now I can't change water to wine. I can't raise dead, but I can perform the miracle of giving myself peace of mind for 5 minutes. And I can teach you how to get peace of mind for 5 minutes. So that's basically where I was at that time. And so what I found then was that I had to find some way of dealing with the idea. So I would pray to God, and I would go to bed at night time. And suddenly I had this idea one morning about in every industry, there is a margin of error of 5%. And that would mean that in the mental health industry, 5% of 1 billion people would be 50 million people. So I used to post that 50 million people in the world have been misdiagnosed with mental disorders. And I was thinking about this and praying about this and meditating on this. And suddenly in my sleep, not a word of a lie, some voice says to me, will you go onto Google and research and see exactly what the number is? So I wake up in the morning thinking, where did that thought come from, you know? So I go off and I go to Google, and Google says that the mental health industry did a study about 2 or 3 years ago, and it's in the National Library of Medicine in North America, and it states that 39% of all people diagnosed with mental disorders were misdiagnosed. That's 390 million adults were misdiagnosed. That out of 290 million children, 120 million children were misdiagnosed. That's a crazy number. And I think that 39% is on the low side. I think that they're kind of trying to protect themselves by giving a number, but not giving the right number. I think it could be double that. And the reason why I think that is because the past didn't happen to the person we have to say, it's not ours to suffer. And they're treating the feelings, but not treating the event. Science tells us it's all about cause and effect. We have to treat the cause and not the effect. But the mental disorder is treating the effect. How does that make you feel? But how did that make you feel isn't the problem. The problem is there's an event in my memory that's caused me troubles. How do I remove that memory? And because it's in our past, the mental health industry can't treat it because it's in our past. They can only treat what we present with. So they're treating our feelings and our emotions and how it manifests in our lives. But that's not the problem. That never was the problem. It's something in the past that's eating away at us. And that's what's eating a hole in our soul. And that's why I believe it's a spiritual sickness and not a mental disorder.
So is that where you think, in what other ways besides that one, do you think that is the reason why traditional mental health approaches, fall short of where they should be?
Well, I think the only reason is the fact that they're treating the effect and not the cause. Scientifically, it tells us we must treat the cause. And the mental health industry can't treat the cause because we're treating something that's in our past, that's spiritual. And they don't deal with spiritual. They only deal with our thinking and our feelings. But our thinking and our feelings aren't the problem. It's that simple. Now, my own experience was I suffered a molestation when I was a child. And then it wasn't that I wanted to die, but I didn't want to live. And in my journey, I attempted suicide 3 times. I became addicted to gambling and alcohol. I self-harmed, self-abuse, all the kind of stuff. Later on, I got into eating disorder. I was trying to fill this hole in my soul. And I remember one time, back in the day, this is about 40 years ago, there were very few immigrants in Ireland at the time. And the only immigrants that were really coming in were from Romania. Romanian gypsies were coming into Ireland. They weren't like there is now from everywhere. And I remember walking down through my hometown going to work, and it's very busy on the pedestrian pathway. As I'm walking, this woman's on the side of the road holding her baby, pulling at my leg, looking for money. And I shrugged her off, like, get off me. I had no empathy for her whatsoever. I was on drugs. I was high as a kite, suppressing my feelings and emotions, just going to work like a zombie, just turning up working, whatever. I was on medication for my depression. And that evening when I got home and the medication wore off, I basically vomited down the toilet. I couldn't believe how I was so empathetic to a woman holding a baby. I pictured my sister holding a baby or mother holding a baby. And the fact that I didn't care, or I was so shut down emotionally, I felt this wasn't for me. And so I remember going to my doctor the next morning and saying, I want to come off these meds. They're destroying me. My ability to feel anything is just dead to me. And he said, I'm afraid you can't. And I was very offended. So I went home, and luckily I'm in a family business. So I phoned my brother. I said, I won't be in for a few weeks. I need to come off this medication. I'll take my holidays today. So I went to my bedroom, and without telling anybody, I decided to detox for 2.5 weeks in my bedroom, in my house. So it was my own house, and no one's with me. I'm in this house, and vomiting, and I'm throwing up, and diarrhea, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going through terrible withdrawals and terrible manic episodes. But I didn't want to be on medication. I wanted to feel my feelings. There was something about it that I just couldn't. The idea of living my life in this state was just no longer an option. When I first took medication, it was a great relief not to feel anything. But I just, in myself, I didn't want to live a life of not feeling. I didn't want to feel life to be numb to everything. I just didn't want, and maybe I was on the wrong medication. It didn't matter. I didn't want that sensation of being dependent on medication and not actually be present to experience a sunset or a baby laughing or some sadness or something happening and not feeling sad for it, or empathy. That was one thing I didn't want to suffer. And so I remember going to this for about 2.5 years. My family would come over and they'd drop food over, whatever. But they understood I was on a kind of a crusade, so they let me at it. And they kept an eye on me, whatever. But being over water and liquid foods, lots of like soup and whatever. And I managed to go through 3 weeks of horrendous, just coming off the drugs. At the end of those 3 weeks, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. I was manic and I was so raw to my feelings. I'm back to my doctor. I said, I've come off that medication. He goes, are you crazy? I would have meant you could do it, but do it slowly. I didn't mean not to do it at all, but not to do it. I meant don't do it at one time. And of course, I was so headstrong and committed. I didn't want to take a month or 2 months or 3 months to get off it. I wanted to go on. So anyway, so that was that. So then I was in AA as an alcoholic and a gambler. And I've been in AA about 5 years. And I used to go to AA meetings and I'd bitch and moan about my family and about everything else and not change. And then, so I went to a meeting and I was kind of, again, I didn't want to live rather than I want to die. And I got this guy to be my sponsor. And he took me through the 12 steps in about 12 sessions. Like, it was just amazing. And in that moment, I realized I was the problem. It wasn't my parents or my siblings or anyone. I had a problem with everybody else, but everyone else had a problem with me. I was the common denominator. But the problem was I wasn't being a part of life. I was stuck in freeze and fawn. I could see the freeze and fawn in all my actions. I could see that that's where I was. And I needed to go and ask my parents, my siblings, how do you cope and get out of freeze and fawn? That was the biggest change for me, And so my own personal experience was medication and therapy. Because I go to therapy and it was fantastic. You go to your therapy and you tell your therapist, bitch and moan about your family and tell me, and get your feelings validated. But then you'd have to come out and live your normal life. And people weren't being like your therapist, letting you get away with shit. And, so you'd have a great hour with your therapist thinking, I love my therapist. I wish my therapist was my family, And you'd go in the real world and you'd fall miserably because you're in this freezer phone thinking, well, my therapist said I'm validated to feel this way, so you should let me feel this way. And they're kind of going, get a life. I'm meant to get responsible and be part of life. And I didn't want to be. I wanted someone to treat me as a child forever, take care of me as a child forever. So I realized therapy wasn't helping. And therapists didn't love me. Therapists were getting paid. Whether I paid for it or social welfare paid for it, they were getting paid to give me an hour at the time. And if I ran out of money, they'd say, sorry, I wouldn't be able to take you anymore. Go somewhere else, So, but my family were sticking with me the whole time. And they were trying to be there. So I realized I needed to find a way of being a part of life.
So it sounds like you had your breakthrough when you finally stopped trying to run away from yourself and medicate and run away and stop using, letting them give you the medications, although they were sanctioned by the medical establishment or the medical authorities. It sounded like you weren't really getting the results that you were looking for, which is most likely a cure. So it sounds like you took personal responsibility for your situation and and then you, I guess, because you weren't getting what you were looking for from, your psychiatrist or your psychologist, then I guess you went on ahead and improvised for yourself what you needed to do to get yourself out of that situation. Now, what would you recommend to somebody that may find themselves in a similar situation to get out of it?
Well, again, I wouldn't suggest you do the cold turkey like I did to come off your drugs. Speak to your doctor and find some way maybe coming off over a period. If you're on social welfare or any kind of insurance for PTSD or whatever, book yourself into a treatment center. Arrange for a treatment center. You can go there for 3 months, 6 months, whatever, even a year. And you're going to go there, you're going to detox, and you're going to do some 12-step recovery work. Even just 12-step recovery work. I have created a program called Trauma Recovery Anonymous, but there's a 2-hour healing event you need to do beforehand. Now, again, if you'd like to do that with me, I can do it when you're at the treatment center. I can do it with you on Zoom, like here. I can take you to the healing event online, and then you can work with that group of workers to do the 12-step program there. And you learn to become responsible for yourself. And I don't have to make any big decisions. Like, responsible for yourself just means living in the present moment. Right now, in this moment in time, we are exactly where we are meant to be. We are halfway between the past and the unknown future. All our depression is in the past, and all our fear and anxiety is in the unknown future. And right here in the present, we're free of both. If we can focus all our intention and attention on this moment in time, so not the whole 24 hours, this 1 hour now. So if you're here with myself and David, focus on what I'm saying and what David's sharing, and just try to be fully present for you in this moment in time. There's a lovely practice you should try to do. Get 2 sheets of paper. On the first sheet of paper, write your name and age of who you are today. So in my case, I would write 65-year-old Richard. And on this page, I write a biography of everything to do with who I am today. So my wife and my children, my mother-in-law, where I'm living today, my siblings in my life today, my family of origin in my life today, my friends in my life today, and so on. My hopes, my dreams, my aspirations, my work, my therapy, my podcasting, everything about who I am today. And then on the second sheet of paper, write the name and age of that younger aspect of you who suffered the trauma. And choose the first trauma. You might have experienced a lot of trauma in your life. Go back to the very first trauma. And since I'm addressed as Richard today, I call that younger aspect of me Richie. So young 12-year-old Richie, at the top of the page. And then write a biography of his life. So he lived in the family home with his parents who are alive. My parents are dead. All his 5 siblings are alive. One of my siblings died of leukemia. He's living in the family home. I'm living 7,000 miles away in my own home in Thailand, and my family home in Ireland is sold. And so on. You put all this information down to show that you're not the same person. When you can clearly see that everything happened to that 12-year-old child or that 19-year-old younger version of you who went off to fight in the war and suffered a loss of innocence, or that young 15-year-old you who suffered at the hands of dysfunctional parents, or that young 24-year-old version of you who married for love and married a narcissist. It's not you. You're on the other side of the tunnel. You're looking back down the tunnel at the younger version of you who suffered the trauma. They're the victim, but you're the survivor. You're looking back down the tunnel. It didn't happen to you. If you're standing alive today, it didn't happen to you. It happened to a younger aspect of you, and you carry the memory of what happened to them and sympathy pains for them. And then if you can, get a photograph of yourself today and a photograph of that younger child and clip it to that page. I want you to clearly see that you are not that person. You're 2 completely different people. So you no longer say, I was molested as a child, or I was in a dysfunctional relationship with a narcissist, or I suffered a war, because you're alive today on David's show. You're in your home today, wherever you are, America, UK, Australia, you're in your home, in your country today, wherever it is, around your people today. You're not in the past. We can't go back to the past. It's humanly impossible to suffer or heal the pain of another, no matter how much we care for them, even if they are our inner child. It didn't happen to the you or I of today. It's none of our business. The mental health industry would have you believe it is your business and you have to suffer it and process it in the present. But the truth, if you want to heal yourself, is it's none of your business. It's a spiritual sickness that you have eating away at your soul. There was a wonderful chap called Roger Callahan, and it's back in the 60s. He was a psychiatrist, he was a medical doctor, and he was an energist. And he wrote a book called Thought Field Therapy. So from thought field therapy, we have EFT and tapping and all these different ideas of healing. And he created a process for healing trauma, and it would take 2 minutes. You would tap on 4 parts of your body. And after the 4 parts of your body, you'd think about the trauma and it'd be gone. It was mind-blowing, because in his books, he talks about how he was so disillusioned that doctors were applying people with medication, and medication wasn't helping, because it wasn't the event that was the problem. It was the energy attached to the event. And that's why we have energy healing. That's why it's so important that we introduce people with trauma to embrace a concept of God that works for you. If, like me, you never go to church again in your lifetime, that's okay. You never join a denomination, that's okay. You never join a man-made religion, that's okay. Just find out how you can claim your miracles. And then you say to God, okay, God, okay, this is the prayer I share with people. Up until this morning, Lord, what's it called? It goes, Lord God, my Father, I have carried this cross since the day I was born. And like your son, Jesus, I have faltered more than once. On this cross is all the depression and despair of the past, and all the anxiety and fear of the unknown future, and this list of people, places, and things that irritate me. And beforehand, you would have written a list of all the people, places, and things that trouble you. Your parents, your in-laws, your outlaws, your ex, your kids, your boss, your colleagues, whatever, the trauma in the past. You list it all on the sheet of paper. Richard tells me, if I give this to you freely here and now, you'll take it from me and give me 8 hours of peaceful sleep. And so I declare in this moment, freely and unconditionally, to give you this list. You take the list, you go into your bathroom, you tear it up, hopefully you have a lighter in your hand, you light it and you burn it and flush it down the toilet. And then you go back to your bed, put your head in the pillow, close your eyes, put a smile on your lips, and you will sleep for 8 hours. You'll wake up thinking, what happened? No nightmares, no flashbacks. I had 8 hours sleep, and you'll realize you performed your first miracle. You can do that tonight. Don't tell anyone you're doing it. If your family are all woke or they're church hurt, don't tell them you're doing it. Get a sheet of paper and write out every single person, and God can be on that list. You can hate God, put it on your list. I'm giving all the anger I have towards you, God. I'm giving all the anger I have towards Jesus, all the anger I have towards church, or to my parents, or to my wife, or to my children, or whatever. All the guilt I have, and giving it all to you. Make sure you give him every single thing that you have that would wake you up at night. Read it aloud. Say, I give all this to you freely and unconditionally. Take it to the bathroom, burn it, flush it down the toilet, and get back into bed. Because you've given him everything, he will take it from you for 8 hours, and you will get 8 hours of sleep, and you will have performed your first miracle.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty powerful practice. Uh, and what I like about it is that people that are religious can use it, people that are not religious can use it. And so I think it has a wide applicability for people to actually be able to take this tool and use it in a way where they can get some relief from some of the things they're going through. Now,
one thing, David, I just think
sure.
that if we can get 8 hours of sleep, that sets us up for a day. If we can use this practice, and again, you don't have to be religious. I'm not asking you to be religious. Again, I've been doing this now for 13 years, and I don't go to church. I'm not a member of any denomination. So don't think you have to be religious, or I'm trying to fool you into becoming anything. If you choose religion, come to the light. If you want to join a denomination because you feel it helps you, do that. I'm not saying don't do it. For me, it doesn't work. Any kind of organized religion doesn't work for me. Not so far yet. I've tried Roman Catholic, Baptist, Protestant, Anglican, Presbyterian, and unfortunately none of them worked for me. Now maybe Jehovah or some other one will work, but up until now my experience has been organized religion doesn't work for me. But all I have to do is to form a personal, intimate relationship with God. Not to use him. In the past I'd use God as a go-get-you God. When I'm having a bad day, I call out to him. When I'm having a good day, I ignore him. This has to be on his terms. So I have to talk to him all day, every day. So when I'm dropping my children to college, I'm driving the car. I have a conversation with him in the car. Okay, God, let me get there safely. No road rage, blah blah. Let me just be calm and peaceful and get. And my wife said, "Who are you talking to?" I said, "Oh, I'm just praying." And she understands it, and I just do that, and that makes me calm and peaceful. And I get my children to university and whatever, and I come off with my wife shopping, and I'm pushing the trolley. I'm having this prayer to myself again. Every waking moment, I can get out of my headspace and fill it with something else. I'm at peace, because if I'm left to my own thoughts, I start thinking victimhood and depression, and I go to a dark place. So I just keep repeating this prayer thing, this conversation, all the time. And before I know it, I'm in a really good place. I find I'm going over the time. David, jump in again. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, no problem, no problem. I like that how you giving people, conceptual tools that they can actually use as a practical, matter. It's not just this, pie in the sky type of stuff, or we are the world, or what all this type of stuff. It's actually something somebody can watch this right now, and they can pause this video right now and do that exercise and actually incorporate it into their daily life as a tool that'll help them actually, start to solve problems in their life and to get the results that they're looking for, that I know everybody is searching for. So I really appreciate you keeping this grounded, keeping it practical, giving people actual tools that they can use, because everybody out here is looking for answers for the problems they're encountering in their lives today.
Well, that's what they need. They don't need someone telling them how to live. What's the thing about the fishermen? If you feed someone fish, they'll eat. If you teach them to fish themselves, then they'll eat forever. And that's the whole thing. I want people on your show to learn simple tricks. That's a wonderful. Roger Callahan, part of his process was the heel of your hand, this space between the little finger and your wrist. This is the point for relieving stress. So with your fingers of your other hand, and you can do it both sides, you tap on this at least 5 times. You don't have to think about the trauma. Just tap on this 5 times, both sides, and then stop and think about your trauma. You'll find the energy has shifted simply by doing this, tapping it. Like, it sounds crazy, but try it sometime. If you're of your trauma, just and then think your trauma, and you'll find for some reason the trauma that would, like on a scale of 1 to 10, would make you think 9. Suddenly you do this tapping on your hands. You think of 1 to 10, and it goes to 5. You're kind of wondering, what happened? Where did those 4 points go? It's a really cool tool. You can use it anytime for any situation at all. You'd be sitting down, just tap on the side. If no one's looking under the table, no one's looking before an exam or before public speaking or on a date or something. Just tap on the side of your hand under the table. Just no one can see you doing it. Just tap inside your hand, and it changes your energy. It's powerful stuff. So, and there's loads of other points in your body. And all the chakra points. And if you tap on all these, you can change how you feel about yourself. And then there's 4 breaths. And I never knew this. There's 2 things I want to share with you. One of the 4 breaths. So first off, when you're breathing in, breathe into your nose only. When we breathe into our mouths, we aggravate anxiety and panic in our chest, and the stress is stored in our shoulders. It's like we carry the weight of the world upon our shoulders. We breathe into our mouth, we start triggering it, and we get anxiety and panic in our chest, and we get the stress, the whole pain on our shoulders. So breathe into your nose, and it bypasses this area into your tummy, and you can feel at peace. So if you learn to breathe into your nose, and then you exhale through your mouth, but from this day forward, breathe into your nose only, and you'll calm right down. You'll find your anxiety and panic will lessen, your stress will lessen, you'll feel great. So tie in with that 4 breaths. The first is what I call the melodial sigh. So you breathe into your nose, feel it touch your stomach, and then exhale. And then for the melodial sigh, hum a tune or sing a song, because the music is the food of the soul, and the soul's laughter. So you're going to breathe in, and release whatever stress or anxiety in your body with your breath, with a smile, a melodial sigh. Just it sounds crazy, I know, but if you do this, you'll find a shift. The next one is the yawn. When we were children and we were getting very, especially for myself, my parents would have their friends over. They'd been out for a few drinks. They'd be over to the house to do some chat and whatever. And I'd really uncomfortable around my father's friends. So I would feign tiredness. My mum would say, "Oh, Richard's tired, let him go to bed." And that was my way of protecting myself. When I was anxious, was to be tired. So what you do then is put your hands on your chest, open your arms wide, put your head back, breathe in deeply, and then do a big long yawn. And do that melodial sound. You're releasing all the anxiety that's trapped in your body, all the anxiety and panic. And again, Don't do this in front of people. Do it in your bedroom or in the toilet, and just release all the anxiety with your yawn. And what will happen is, after you start using the yawn one, your eyes are going to go very numb. You're going to find yourself yawning all the time, and tears might come from your eyes. You've been, all the anxiety you've been holding on to for 10, 20, 30 years starts coming out with your yawn. And then for the deep-seated stuff in your soul, the stress and the demons of the past and your trauma, you cough it from your body. So you breathe into your nose and you imagine you're gathering up all your demons in your tummy, and you're going to just throw them out. So you breathe into your nose and then you cough them out of your body. And you really feel yourself, you're getting all the stress out. Again, you're only doing it for a few minutes. You can take it all back in 5 minutes. But to give you freedom or release from some of the anxiety, some of the stress, you can do these practices. When you've done those three, the next one is just to celebrate the fact that you've used your breath to release some of your long-held anxiety and stress. So this time you're going to laugh. Smile on your face, breathe in, and fake a laugh. And just by doing that, everything in your whole persona changes. So if you, and you'll find it, you can be feeling terribly depressed, suddenly you can smile, and your depression leaves you. You can't explain it. You can feel depression and you feel you want to kill yourself. And if you can force yourself to smile and hold that smile for 3 minutes, your depression will disappear. It's quite uncanny. So if you can put the smile on your face and then do some ridiculous laugh, or giggle, in that moment, and then do it by breathing in the breath and do your melodious sigh to your laugh, whatever, it'll change you. So those 4 breaths, tapping on the side of your hand, they will help you an awful lot just to get moments of peace.
Okay, excellent, excellent. I love that. Now, I got another question now. What do you think is the biggest mistake that people make when trying to heal their mental health?
But this is a trick question, and I want to kind of clarify what I mean. I do believe that at one time, the mental health industry separated mental illness from mental disorders. They knew clearly that mental illness was if you had a brain damage or something happened, whatever, and you had this damage to the brain, you had mental illness. But then I think it's about 12 years ago, they decided to put mental illness and mental disorder under the same banner. And that's the lie we've been fed. Now they tell us that mental disorders are mental illness. But if mental disorders are mental illness, how can someone be misdiagnosed? You can't be misdiagnosed with mental illness. If you have something happen to you in your childhood or in a car accident that damaged your brain, and you've got a brain that isn't whole and complete, that's a mental illness. And you can't be misdiagnosed with mental illness because that's a real state of mind. You had part of your brain removed, or you had some damage to your brain, or something happened that caused a brain illness. And that can't be misdiagnosed. If you have a brain illness, brain damage to your brain, that is a mental illness. But if they can admit to 39% of mental disorders being misdiagnosed, they can't be recognized as mental illness. So when we talk about mental illness versus mental disorder, we have to draw a distinct line in the sand and say, this is mental illness, this is mental disorder. Because mental disorder is the effects and not the cause. Whereas mental illness is the cause. And mental illness, you're treating an actual cause, an actual condition of the brain that got damaged or got something happened, okay? Or you were very ill for a long while, and when you came out of the illness, your brain was some way impaired. That's mental illness. It's a line in the sand of what mental illness is. And you can, once you're diagnosed with mental illness, you have it. But mental disorder is a person's opinion. So you go to see a therapist and you're feeling really depressed. All they can do is diagnose, because you're so depressed, you have PTSD or depression or bipolar, and they're right to assume that's your condition because that's what you're presenting with as your feelings. But if you went to them on a good day, they wouldn't be diagnosing you with depression. They may be saying, yeah, no, you're okay, or you're not as bad. But because you're presenting with some terrible nightmares and flashbacks and lots of anger and rage, they're saying, oh no, you've got PTSD level 1, 2, 3, or 4, or you've got bipolar level 1, 2, 3, or you've got complex PTSD. But they're diagnosing on how you're presenting, how it's manifesting. And that's not a mental illness, that's a mental disorder. I think it was wrong of the mental health industry to put them as one. Because now we have children who've been diagnosed with mental disorder because they're told that their feelings and emotions are mental disorders. When the fact that feelings and emotions are their God-given instincts, their gut feelings, they're telling them when they feel anxious or depressed or stressed or sad, mad or glad, they're to take some form of action. They're to flight, They're to fight, they're to freeze, they're to fawn, they're to faith, they're to acceptance. Just take some action. They take some action, they'll be fine. It may not be the best action, but they'll have taken action, they'll be fine. They'll grow up to be mature individuals. But if they believe their feelings and emotions are mental disorders and they stay stuck with the feeling, they medicate the feeling, we're destroying the future of the human race. And with the mental health industry having diagnosed 290 million children, of which 120 million were misdiagnosed, that is a crime against mankind, a sin against God. So when you ask me the question, I have to be very careful to say, I'm not talking about mental illness. People with a mental illness, they have a mental illness and they can only be treated by mental health professionals. We've talking about people who have been diagnosed with mental disorders. I do not understand how you can put it in the same box if at the same time the mental health industry can say we misdiagnose 120 million children or 290 million adults, 390 million adults. It doesn't make sense that suddenly they can be mental illness because they were misdiagnosed. It means they can't have had a mental illness. They had a mental disorder. They had a doctor's opinion. The doctor got the wrong opinion. Maybe the doctor was having a bad day. Maybe the doctor had a load of clients in at that time and just was so fed up and so burnt and so drained that they automatically put the label of PTSD on the client at the time because they were so inundated with clients coming in. They were just putting them all, if they were a soldier, they were just labeling them with PTSD and send them out. And suddenly, 20 years later, they find out they don't have a mental disorder, that the therapist who died 10 years ago, diagnosed them 20 years ago, made an error, gave the wrong opinion. It's not your therapist today's fault, but it's your therapist today's responsibility to, I don't know if the Hippocratic is in place, I expect it should be, or the duty of care. If you have 39% of the world's population misdiagnosed, it's your job is to, if you have 12 clients on your books, that means that 3 clients have been misdiagnosed. To find out which 3 they are and tell those 3 you don't have a mental disorder. Let's help you come off that medication. We'll get you to go into a treatment center for 6 months, 9 months. We get the insurance to cover it. Our practice, the mental health industry will cover it. Go somewhere where you can come off that medication and try something different. Maybe try Rich's program or some other program, and we find some way of healing the whole of your soul because you don't have a mental illness.
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that because I wasn't aware that they had done that, separated the mental illness from the mental disorder.
But they hadn't, but they should. They had in the beginning. There was a separation, and then they brought it together.
Okay, okay, yeah, I misspoke, but that's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you for explaining that difference. Now, how would people get more information about you in the way that your approach to helping people to heal themselves from mental disorders and mental illnesses?
Well, again, I can't help people with mental illness. So I'm sorry. I have to clarify that. I can help you if you have, and I'm not a conventional therapist. It's not a case of you book me as your therapist and we see each other week out and we develop a relationship. I'm going to teach you, if you decide to contact me, in a 2-hour event, how to give the details and the baggage of the event back to your younger self. You're going to do all the work yourself. When you've completed that event and you feel the release in your body mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, you'll then complete the 12-step program of Trauma Recovery Anonymous to undo all that learned dysfunctional behavior of your misdiagnosis. In that moment, you'll be completely free. Now, as in all 12-step programs, I don't charge for taking you through the 12 steps. So I'm charging for taking you through the healing event. I charge €60 for this 3-hour practice. So it's 2-hour practice I'm charging for, and there's an hour thrown in of the 12 steps. When the 12 steps have been completed, I then will take you through the 12 steps over the next 12 weeks, 12 steps a day for 12 weeks. So you really can implement this 12 steps as a way of living. And it's very, very simple. You learn to live life in a different way. You're not a victim. The past has nothing to do with you. You're focused on living in the present. And I'll share with you how you do that. And then when you've completed those 12 steps, you can join the 12-step program of Trauma Recovery Anonymous. In normal 12-step programs, you can join straight away and be a part of that idea. But this program, you have to heal yourself first before you can join. It's a program about complete recovery. And so it's very slow to get involved because you have to do this healing event, the 12-step program, over 12 days, and then you jump into the program because then you're healing yourself. You're not looking for someone to therapy you, not looking for someone to take care of you. When you've done the 12 steps, 12 days in a row with myself, and you're doing them yourself 3 or 4 times a day, every day, you're in a place where you are completely healed and you've done this all yourself and you're your own independent person. So you're getting your own independence back. Now, I'll always be available for a chat, but I'm not your therapist. We're not going to be meeting every week. And if you want to pay me, I'm not going to allow you to treat me as your therapist every week. This whole process is where you do the work, get healed, and jump back into life and have a life with your family, your friends, make amends with your ex-partner and your children and your family of origin, and get a job again. And I'm not saying you have to stop taking the social welfare payments for PTSD. If you're on social welfare, take it for life. Don't tell anybody you've done this work. You deserve to get social welfare if you have suffered being of service to your country, whether that's a policeman or an emergency services or a doctor or a nurse or a mother or a father. If you've given your life in the service of mankind, you should receive all the social welfare for your life. So if you do this healing event, keep going for your therapy sessions to get your social welfare. I'm not saying I think you should get it for life because you gave your life up for mankind. So I have a podcast that's called Trauma Recovery Anonymous. I have an email, just traumarecoveryanonymous.com. You can contact me at information@traumarecoveryanonymous.com. You can contact me there. I can arrange to take you through the session. You'll need to go onto Amazon and buy the two books. One is called Healing Any Trauma, Memory by Richard Tierney, and Trauma Recovery Anonymous by Richard Tierney. Trauma Recovery Anonymous is a recognized 12-step program designed off the 12 steps of AA with their permission and approval. It's the 14th such 12-step program in the world, and it's the first of its kind that empowers people to break free of all past trauma. So I focus on those who are misdiagnosed. But even if you weren't misdiagnosed, I still think the percentage that the mental health gave is on the low side, because mental health disorders are focused on the effect and not the cause. So I think that percentage could be much, much higher. It's a very good chance that you could be one of those people. So it might be worth your while to, the book sells for, I think it's €40 for the healing event, and then about €20 for the 12-step program. And then if you contact me directly to take you to the post, it's €60. So it's going to probably cost you about €140 for the whole shebang. But at the end of it, no more therapy, no more medication, no more. You're free to live your life. And then when you go to your therapist, you can start working on setting healthy boundaries and repairing the damage in the present because you've let the past go. So that's really where I am with all that. My son is designing. I'm an old man now. I'm not very IT friendly. My son is designing my website. But right now, he's off from college and there's girls. So he's kind of been waylaid about making this promise of this podcast, of this website has been going on for months. And I think I've light a fire on him. But again, I think if I push him too much, he'll tell me to jump in the liffey. So I've got to be very hands-on, kid glove. But he said 3 weeks. 3 weeks. He's been saying 3 weeks for a while. So when the website is up and running, again, I'll have that I'll send that to you. So you can contact me at information@traumarecoveryanonymous.com. And I can have a chat with you, a pre-chat for 10, 20 minutes to talk to you about what's happening. If you want to talk about it first, like this with David about what the whole thing is. But understand, the past is none of your business. It didn't happen to the person you are today. And that's the truth that will set you free. Your whole life is in this 24 hours a day. And again, if you can do that prayer I shared earlier on and claim 8 hours at nighttime, it means your whole life is 16 hours, 8 hours of work and 8 hours of play. And if you can break it down to 1 hour at a time, you're living a 16-hour life rather than all of the past and all of the future and these 24 hours. So that prayer I shared earlier on, if you put that into play, you'll be amazed. You'll get 8 hours sleep. You kind of realize I only have to live 16 hours a day. And then you break it down to 1 hour or 3 hours or 4 hours. And you can use that prayer during the day. So you can ask for 2 hours here or 4 hours there. So good luck with this. I hope you find some hope in this. There's 3 things I'd like to share, if I may, at the end of
Go
this.
ahead. Sure.
We're coming towards the end of time, and I don't want to leave you with nothing, although I know I've shared some things with you. The first 3 steps of the 12-step program. The first one is you're not a victim. Understand that people are selfish. I'm selfish. David's selfish. You have your selfish moments. We're selfish by nature, by being humans. When I act out, I'm not acting out against you or David. What I shared today wasn't to hurt you. I'm sharing my truth. And if it hurt you, you were collateral damage. You weren't the target of this conversation. And if you can understand that when your family hurts you or your neighbors hurt you or your boss or colleagues, they're acting out for their own nefarious needs. The fact that you're hurt by their actions, it wasn't about you. You can embrace this. It will help you to grow into a mature adult. And then you're not the victim. That'll help you an awful lot in every situation, just accept I'm not the victim. I'm not allowing anyone to make me a victim ever again. So that's the first step of the 12-step program. The second step is to understand you're not alone. You've got David's podcast, there's other podcasts, there's videos on YouTube, there's a meditation practice on YouTube, there's Spotify, there's the library. You can have the library and sign up and it's free. Go and get a book and read a book and it's free unless you go over date. So but just before it's over date, go back in and sign it out again and it's free. It's only when you have it too long, they charge you. But in the library, all this books and videos and tapes, you can rent out for free. It's fantastic. So your library's great. There's resources everywhere. You're never alone. Ask someone for help. I would take my dog for a walk, and when I'm really crazy, I talk to the dog. I'm out for a walk saying, I hate that motherfucker. And I give it to the dog. And I get home afterwards, I feel great that someone heard me. The dog would be oblivious to it. Who wouldn't have, I used to hug trees and talk to trees. Don't be afraid to talk to a tree, to talk to a leaf, to talk to a dog, a cat, or a bush. Give it to the bush, give it to the mountain. No. Dig a hole in the ground, write down a sheet of paper, put in the sheet of paper in the pole and fill it over. Don't be afraid to look for help outside. I remember being at the airport one time. I had to go home to Ireland for some business, leaving my wife and children behind. And I was in the airport going crazy. And I went over to this person and said, I'm sorry, but can I talk at you for about 10 minutes? I need to talk at you. I'm going to go crazy. I don't know if he could speak English, but I sat there and I spewed at this person for 10 minutes, all my anger and rage. At the end of it, he looked at me, I said, thank you. And he just kind of nodded and I walked away and I felt huge relief. Now, the guy probably didn't speak English, he spoke Japanese, something, didn't understand me. But I felt relief from giving myself to somebody else. So don't be afraid to tap into resources. Now, the Bible tells us that Jesus was of this earth. He was the son of Mary and the adopted son of Joseph. And when he was baptized in the River Jordan, became Jesus the Christ. So Jesus, you can pray to. The Holy Spirit came down, so you can pray to the Holy Spirit. But God is of the heavens, and you have to wait till the third step. So you're allowed to ask Jesus, you can ask the Holy Spirit, you can ask your family, your friends, your neighbors, the police. Go down to the police station and say, I'm going crazy. Can I talk to you for 5 minutes? Or can I ask you how you cope with anxiety? And here, that's a great thing. Ask someone how they cope with anxiety. And then do what they do. And if it works, keep it. And if it doesn't work, discard. And then ask the next person how they deal with anxiety or depression. And ask as many people as possible who are normal, who look like they have it in control, how they deal with anxiety or stress or depression, and copy what they do. And over time, you become the strong, silent type. You'll be amazed before you're halfway through how strong and courageous and independent you feel by simply asking people for advice and suggestions. And try and get out of freezing and falling. And the third one is understand there is a God. Stop arguing whether the chicken or the egg came first. Decide there is a God. He cares for you. If you use that prayer practice I shared earlier on, you can claim peace of mind for 8 hours or for 3 minutes. It'll blow you away. And in that moment, understand that he's not a go-get-you God. He won't meet you on your terms. You have to meet him on his terms. His terms is he wants a personal, intimate relationship with you all day long. So when no one's around, just talk to him in your mind or out loud. Say, God, I'm having a crap day today. And you get me through the next hour. Or I'm going to see David. I listen to David, have a conversation with David. May I speak slowly? Or I'm going to bed now with my wife and we had a fight earlier on. Help me to go in there and say I'm sorry to my wife and hug her and say it won't happen again, even though it happens all the time. But just, ask it beforehand to be there. You send a host of angels down to take care of you. And then you go in and suddenly you're chatting with your wife and everything goes, you kind of go, wow, why didn't I think of that sooner? So you're never truly alone, and it's not all about you, and you're not a victim. David, thanks for having me on your show.
Thanks a lot for appearing. I'm really glad you came on.
And to the audience, I hope you found some benefit to what I had to share. I pray whether you have a mental disorder or not, or you're misdiagnosed or not, or you have a mood swing, ask for help. Not to your therapist, but to someone in your family. Start with your parents first, then your siblings, then your relatives, then your favorite teacher, friends and classmates. Give them the chance to be your family. Thank you all.